Good evening, everyone. Michael Devine here. Another episode of Gray Matters Radio, a show for, well, frankly, everyone who feels like they're stuck between the bad marriage of Republicans and Democrats. We'll try to find the area of the in-between. And who better? Michael Devine, America's counselor to, well, unfuck us all, basically.
Who better?
Who better than Michael Devine?
Well, actually, I have a list right here. Let's see. Ricky Lake, is she still a thing?
She could be, yeah.
Yeah? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, we tried getting Ricky. She thought it was kind of weird, though, that we asked her to host Gray Matters Radio with Michael Devine. So instead, we got Bill Reed, the armchair quarterback.
All right, how you doing?
I'm doing all right, man. How you doing?
Good. I'm doing a lot better now. Speaking of talk show hosts, I saw that Jerry Springer is back on the air.
No.
Well, he retired the Jerry Springer show a few months ago. I was not aware of this.
Really?
Yeah, it's not on the air.
Doesn't Steve still have a show? Like
the Steve Wilkos show.
Yeah, Wilkos, yeah.
Which is like the same show, basically. But Jerry's back on the air.
Really?
I caught him. I was at the gym the other day, and he had like their montage of TVs up there, and I scanned over, and they showed Jerry Springer for a second. I go, was that Jerry Springer? Was he wearing a court judge uniform? And sure enough, what's the show called? Judge Jerry.
Really?
There he is in the robe.
Does he even have does he have like a law degree to be a judge?
Well, he was the mayor of Cincinnati, so I'm sure in some circles that makes him. I think he does have some kind of law background. I think. But
I mean, he was mayor of Cincinnati. I mean,
but it's a TV show. I mean, you don't. It's called Judge Jerry. I don't. What?
It could be Judge Mike. I mean, what do you judge of? Life, keeping it real. I mean, what are we talking about? Come on.
I know. I don't think it's a binding. I mean, you can go online now to be ordained ministers now.
Yeah, my dad was ordained. He married Jill and I, and
Andy Leatherman was too. And
yeah.
So I think so. If you're going to be a TV judge, I think that's way less lenient.
Yeah.
Or more lenient, I should say.
Man of the cloth, man of faith. There should be higher expectations. Yeah.
Who's more respectable than the disgraced ex-mayor of Cincinnati, Jerry Springer?
Although I thought it was kind of weird though when Andy got ordained, he was like, "Hey, Mike, do you need to be circumcised?" I was like, "Whoa, easy there, big fella. That's a little too close for comfort. We're boys and all, but a little too much, Yeah, man, it's been a crazy fucking week, man.
Well, you're talking about circumcised. I got
I mean, like, well, how do you, it's been a little crazy.
I got the big V done down there.
I know.
2 weeks ago.
How you feeling? You feeling better?
Yeah, my wedding tackle's working, so, I gotta like that. So.
I'm glad you feel better. I mean, I was actually really worried about you. I mean, you were,
yeah.
You're a little sensitive. You could barely move. I kind of thought we were going to lose you there for a little bit.
Tell you what, man, what a man goes through to stop having kids. I keep hearing this childbirth. Oh man, I'm looking at the doc. I'm like, hey doc, my wife's in the room. I'm getting the consultation for the vasectomy, and my wife's there too. And I'm like, hey doc, I go, isn't it true that this is even more painful than giving birth? I'm like, wake it out. He looks at me, looks at her, and he goes, oh yeah, definitely. She's like, no, Bill, no. I'm like, she knows what I'm doing.
I know Jill and I kind of talked about it. I was like, well, I'll go and do it. I guess if we decide, but I'm not. Exactly rushing off to get it done anytime soon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I got to tell you, it wasn't exactly the number one thing on my to-do list for the fall.
I thought it was actually. Like we were talking back in the day, like what do you want to accomplish by the time you're 40? It's like have some kids, have a vasectomy. That was like number 2. I thought it was weird is like have 2 kids and then vasectomy right after that. Yeah. Not even like marriage. Or anything like it's. I mean, it's weird that you predicted that like several years ago.
Well, what's funny too is like after the post-op, the procedure, you go in this little room. They have like the curtain, and then there's people sharing curtains next to you. It's a outpatient clinic, I guess.
Yeah. Let's call it that.
And the nurse she's following up with her paperwork, and she's reading it, and she's like, okay. And it was almost like she was embarrassed, or I was going to be embarrassed. So she was like, okay, so now that you've had your vasectomy, here's your fault. I'm like, I don't care now. Like,
Mr. Johnson, you had your sex change done. It's like they were like, out loud and proud about that.
I'm kind of like, I'm okay with it. Like I'm talking about it here. Like it's not, I'm not worried about it.
Surgery is kind of like a vulnerable thing,
Yeah,
they're trying to protect you. I remember the time, and I'll say the story. We'll jump into what we're going to talk about tonight, but. The professor, my dad, he's always on the show, and you think, you've heard him on the show. He's a real caring guy. He's all about, he's a good dad. And so you think, like, your dad would be there for you in certain circumstances when you're most vulnerable, and he has. I mean, except for one time. So I had surgery. I've busted my shoulder up a couple times, all right? So my first surgery, my dad worked at a hospital, so he got, like, special access, so he could walk me back to the OR. He got to put on a little hat and booties and everything, and so I'm walking out. Now, mind you, the nurse that was walking me back was, we'll say, rather attractive. Now, maybe it was the verse said, the Xanax they had me, and I was just feeling extra relaxed and hitting on this girl. I mean, nothing better than hitting on an attractive nurse with, like, you're about to get surgery in a hospital gown, right? It's nothing more baller than that. But
was it cold in the hospital too?
Well,
Is this where we're going?
Well, no. So the best, like, so I'm talking to this girl. I'm like getting my Mac. I'm like, yeah, right,
and you're on drugs.
So literally. So my dad's there, a nurse, and then this other nurse comes in behind him, and she's like, "Oh, honey, like you better fix that." Like, my ass was just out there hanging out for everybody, and my dad just started laughing. I was like, "Thanks, Dad. Thanks for doing me a solid and letting me keep going and hitting on this nurse with my ass just hanging out, flailing." It's because, like, the second she said it, because he was walking behind me, so he knows my ass was hanging out the whole time. Of course, he does not even say anything. Like, thanks, Pops, appreciate it.
Man, oh man.
Oh man, that's what the professor's for, right?
I feel like the people that created those robes did so with, like, a tongue-in-cheek kind of
joke
in mind.
I guess we'd have to ask, our, the spouses, who are in the industry, like, why is that? Maybe it's because, like, in case you, like, you need to, like, be crash card, they can rip it off easier. But
it's funny because our wives are nurses, and my wife, I'll ask her, like, a medical. Sometimes I'll ask her like, so how come this? And she'll go, how the heck should I know? And I'm like, I don't know. No.
I'll do the same thing. I'm like, what is that? She goes, I don't know. I'm like, you're a nurse.
She's like, and she'll tell me too, if we're out and about, she's like, hey, if something happens, I'm not a nurse. Like, I'm not getting involved.
Jill says that all the time.
It's like that scene from what was it, Mr. Deeds? Remember that kid's choking, and that one woman's pretending to be a nurse, and she's like, oh, he's choking. We should leave. He's like, wait, don't you need to do something? That's what I feel like my wife would be like.
I think the only time I've ever actually thought about, like, where I wouldn't hide it, if, like, we're on an airplane and someone, like, just goes, like, this batshit crazy and is trying to open the window, then I'm like, all right, my ass is gonna step in and, like, stop that. But other than that,
physically, or are you just gonna, like, try to, like, mess with their mind, like you try to?
Oh, dude, I'm doing I'm pulling out my containment holds from when I worked inpatient, man. I'm taking his ass down.
Nice.
Yeah.
Good job.
I still remember that shit. It's like instinct, man.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's yeah.
You don't forget that shit. It's kind of why I'm so jumpy around you half the time. You get close to me, I'm like, oh, it's kind of good to do it.
That's like a million years of evolution right there.
Yeah.
If you believe in that, I guess.
Nam was hell, man. It was.
Nam was hell.
It never came back the same, man. So I guess let's get started tonight. So I guess before we get started, I actually thought it was, like, really cool tonight. We're always talking about the show of, like, what we can do to change things. It's not just about railing about the Trumper. It seems like.
Well, correction, you're railing about Trump.
I rail again. You guys don't. I do.
I reel you back in sometimes.
You guys do. I mean, that's why the show works. There's balancing it out, right? But we're always talking about, like, what we can kind of do. And it was actually really cool tonight. Here in Orange Township, we had our people going up for, like, board of trustees, fiscal officers in Orange Township, and we actually had a chance to meet with them, sit down, and kind of talk with them. It was Lisa Kraft. She is running for Orange Township fiscal officer, and Robert Quigley is the Orange Township trustee. And they were really cool because we were really talking about why get involved in local community politics and even the effect of, like, the national politics on local politics. And one of the big reasons why they're running, it's like, listen, we live here. We're not trying to run for any, like, higher office. We just really care about our community, and it's easy to sit there and point the fingers at all the bigger things, but if we're really trying to make a change, it's in our own communities, where we actually get to talk with people, be the face of the town, and actually do things that are actually affecting people. And it was actually really, really cool. It was really nice to see some politicians where, if you were to ask me, hey, were they Democrat or Republican, I have absolutely no idea, because it wasn't leading about that. It was just simply about, hey, we're running for an office and we care about our community, and these are our solutions and why we would like you to vote for. So, like, I just want to say, Robert Quigley, Lisa Kraft, I'm endorsing them for our Orange Township, city council.
Well, I don't live in Orange Township. That's a full disclosure, but I also endorse them.
Yeah, they're really cool people. I mean, like, I wasn't really sure what they kind of think, because someone, one of the people that lived in the neighborhood was just kind of having them there at the house, and you can get a chance to meet them. And I thought that was cool, because one of the other people that's running, all you hear is, like, literally, she posts stuff like conspiracy theories on her site. It's just all drama, which is one of the reasons why they're kind of running.
It's all drama.
It really is. And so they're, like, nowhere to be kind of found. The other people that were running, and here they are, just, hey, we just want to talk. And it was very humanizing. And And it's exactly what we preach on the show, people taking things in their own hands and trying to find some solutions. I think it's just really cool. I wanted to start the show off with something positive, something constructive, and that there's a lot of people out there who, not saying they listen to the show, but it'd be cool if they did. But, it's just really cool just to see people taking matters in their own hand and doing what we think is right. And it gives you hope that there's a lot of people like us who do the show and listen to the show that are trying to do what they can in their communities to make change. So I dig that, man. That's awesome. So on that note, then, it was an interesting week. What can I say, right? So now...
There's a lot of wisdom going around.
There is a lot of wisdom, Bill. A lot of wisdom, infinite, well, it's not necessarily infinite kind of wisdom, but so did you get like what Trump basically said today? I mean, I don't know if you've really been paying attention to the news at all. But Trump today, basically it was a big shift in policy so basically, long story short, the U.S. has backed the Kurds in the north in Syria. They're basically fighting and waging the war into the north. Trump basically kind of reversed course and basically said, "Hey, we're getting the hell out of it. Let you guys basically, do your own thing." Now the thing is, Trump, this was like universally panned. Democrats, Republicans, if anything, Republicans were the most vehement against this. Trump literally came out today and said, this is his Twitter, so if you think I'm doubting it. So I'm not even going to do I guess I could do the Trump kind of little cadence, but he said, "As I have stated strongly before, and just to reiterate, if Turkey does anything that I, in my great and unmatched wisdom, consider to be off limits, I will totally destroy and obliterate the economy of Turkey. In parentheses, I've done that before. They must, with Europe and others, watch over. ... What the fuck? Was he the Wizard of Oz?
I believe the term is Lord and Ruler.
Oh my God! Really? Literally, I mean, who says that? What?
Maybe.
I don't even know what to fucking say. There's nothing you can say about that. What human being, what human being, let alone a president, says that? If any one of us were to say that to the other person, we would have our asses beat by the other person, and you would have it coming. If I said that, I would come home, busted nose, black eye, and she'll be like, "Oh my God, Mike, what the fuck happened?" If I told her what I said, she would probably then kick my ass for saying it on top of that.
So you mean I can't walk down the street with a shirt that just says like "fuck the Kurds" or
no? I mean, yeah, you can. That would be better than saying that. I mean, like literally, he's like does he really think he's like the Wizard of Oz? I got something better to run on.
All
right. So let's dive in here tonight. All right. So so let me ask you a question. All right. So tonight, so what we're about to talk about tonight. So this has started a firestorm on my fucking Facebook page. Right. So So there was an author, okay, and his name's Tim Miller. Tim Miller writes for The Bulwark. It's basically like a blog, like just like most of these writers, right? Now, what he basically did, what Tim Miller did, was that he was really fascinated. Now, mind you, the article was written basically to kind of make fun of it, but if you take away just the snarky kind of facetious comments, his whole point was to basically dive into the conspiracy theory about the opposite, basically what all of Trump supporters and everyone is saying really went down in the 2016 election and what's happening now, the conspiracy against Trump. I mean, he pulled together, literally everything, like basically Giuliani and all these people basically said about what their research has basically shown and put together in a cohesive story. And we'll just say that it started it started a lot of arguments on a Facebook page. It actually brought out a lot of what's wrong with social media and politics. People literally not even reading the article, making comments, and like, did you not even like read the article? Did you not even hear anything I say? Did you even see my question that I asked? And then literally we had one person, I'm not going to call them out, they know who they are, but they probably be listening to the show because they don't, apparently to them, they openly admitted that, well, I didn't read it, I don't need to read it. But I'm like, so basically what you're saying is your job, you're trying to change people's hearts and minds, and you're openly admitting that I'm not going to listen or read anything that you have to say, but I'm going to tell you why you're wrong and why I'm right. It's flawless logic, right? So it was an interesting thing. So I want to go through it tonight. I want to break down what the conspiracy theories are. And people going, well, you called it conspiracy theory and, it automatically has a negative, you're priming people that it's bullshit. It's a conspiracy theory. It's not proven. There's multiple people involved. Hence why multiple people all conspiring to basically do something. That's a conspiracy theory.
Conspiracy theory in general, that term has a
but this is literally the definition of a
it.
conspiracy theory, right?
Well, it's like the whole treason thing. You say people throw around treason,
yeah,
and you throw that around enough, and it's going to kind of lose its luster, or at least its reasonability, and you're not going to take it as serious because everyone's a treasonous bastard now.
Yeah.
So when you start hearing conspiracy theory after the umpteenth conspiracy theory, whether it's right or wrong or some truth to it, people are going to be like, oh, get out your tinfoil hat, right? You know what I mean?
Exactly. So now
I love conspiracy.
I love a good conspiracy theory. I more take a scientific approach to it. I always say you got to try to disprove it first. If you can't disprove it, then you look at what does the evidence say. But you also got to follow Occam's razor, which is sometimes the most likely and simplest solution is, the most plausible. And we seem to forget that. We try to come up with these super convoluted, it's like sometimes the most simple explanation is the most likely solution here. And we're not following that. So this is a great article if you want to find it. Once again, it's Tim Miller. It's on the Bulwark. It's on our Facebook page. You want to take a look at it. It has citations of where these people said these things. So it's not like he just made it up. Now, maybe he paraphrased some things or maybe put a certain bent on it. But I think I'm going to try to read through that and simply just present it. And I'm going to go in chronological order because it's very laid out very nicely. Okay. So now before I get started, I'm curious with you, Bill. Sure. What do you know about what a lot of Trump supporters are saying really happened with Trump being framed in Russia and the election and FBI? What do you actually know?
Well, what I know, what I think is based on what was it, text messages or emails, that there were some in the FBI from the beginning, who was openly admitted, sort of said, we will not let him be elected. Like, we're going to put it. First of all, the fact that the FBI is saying that about any candidate right there should raise some. Forget about Russia. Forget about whether you like Trump, you hate Trump, you love Hillary. The fact that the FBI is saying that they are going to interfere or do what they can to stop any candidate or help any candidate, that in of itself, I mean, fidelity, bravery, does that kind of go out the window?
Yeah.
So right there off the bat, that's already, whether something has happened or not, right? Especially with the FBI director later on, that immediately, to a lot of Trump supporters, is going to cast this huge cloud over.
Absolutely.
Because if you're going to say that, don't put it in a freaking email or a text message. You can't do that.
Yeah.
Like, even if you talk, one thing if you're sitting around having a couple beers and you say something privately, it's another thing to put pen to paper or something, because right there, it's indisputable. It's written down. It's a text, whatever it is, an email. So right there off the bat, true or not, the FBI, there's a higher power working against Trump. Right there, it's us against the man. So that happens.
And that's largely kind of what you're understanding, basically.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's basically kind of where it starts. So you really go back. So basically, it basically started a lot in the spring of 2016. Okay. The public story is that, Russians hacked the U.S. political, system in order to benefit Trump. Basically, a lot of different people that were intertwined in this plot, basically to, try to, overthrow Trump, basically. So where it basically kind of starts. So, like, there's a lot of different kind of pieces kind of to this. So just follow me on this one. I'm going to try to bear with us on this one. But I got, like, paper. I actually done research. Like, I got highlights on this one. My wife was like, wow, you're really, like, researching. Do you do this for all the shows? I'm like, well, for this one, I almost have to, because there's a lot to it. And I don't want people to go like, well, dude, it was actually like spring of 27. It's like, fuck, come on, man. Like, throw me a bone, all right? Like, try my best here, all right? I have a day job, okay? Now, if you guys want to pay me more and tell your friends more about the show so I can do this full time, then that's dope.
There you
go. Then I will. But until then, get off my fucking nuts, all right? So, anyhow, I'm trying to drink some beer here. Hold on. Get wet my whistle.
There you go. That's what you need, is alcohol and a megaphone to voice your opinion.
God, I love it, man. It's nice.
What could go wrong here?
All right, let's do this. Okay, so so let's start off. So basically at the center of the case, so this is basically what the Trump supporters and people with it believe really what kind of happened. So, and as Bill, you said it, where everything kind of started was with FBI agents Peter Strzok and Andrew McCabe and Lisa Page. And they said, and I quote the text messages, "We are going to protect the country on many levels from the possibility of a President Trump." They even texted on government zones about a quote-unquote secret society. So you're absolutely right. anyone would hear or see anything like that, you would sit there and kind of go, all right, so what is this secret society? Who's actually part of this, right? And the thing is that they even implicated or alluded to. Now, it wasn't like black and white. These people were included, but they basically thought the heads of the FBI and CIA, James Comey and John O'Brien, were what they said #resistance warriors. That, there basically was belief that they were actually part of the secret society as well. Now, no one knows who all was considered in that secret society, but it wasn't, quote, secret society, it was other people. It was just alluded to the fact that they thought James Comey and John O'Brien were the ones also involved in this,
and
okay?
these were people that were anti-Trump?
Anti-Trump, that they were part of it. And now Comey, remember...
not just anti-Trump, but were they pro-Hillary or pro-someone else?
I think it was largely that they were just completely anti-Trump, but then, of course, they wanted Hillary basically to kind of win.
Well, by default, right.
Yeah.
So, so they're secret society, an Illuminati-ish type. Is this what we're talking here?
Not necessarily. I mean, they thought that they're part of the deep state. What they think the deep state is people within the government who are basically
above the law.
They're above the law.
Yeah.
They're the ones pulling all the strings, which I think a lot of people have been saying. I mean, you go back to the Kennedy assassination, UFOs.
I don't know about UFOs and Kennedy assassination, but I can tell you, for the 2016 election, again, they put it in a text message. Okay.
And once again,
and it isn't a couple guys that are just texting back and forth like you and I. These are FBI agents. Yeah. So,
and this is interesting. And it's how we're reading this. We're gonna look at what it says. And now the thing is, and I remember with anything now in science, like when you're doing like psychological or not psychological, you're doing scientific research, a scientific method. You come up with a hypothesis, right? You think you have an idea for something, and you have data. Right? Now, the thing is, your first step is to try to disprove your hypothesis. The reason why we do that is we fall for what we call the confirmation bias. When we want to believe something so bad, if our first step is just to try to prove it, we're basically only going to look at information that confirms what we want to believe, and we'll throw out the rest, right?
Everything else is trash.
So that's why we always try to disprove it, right? And then you actually even have what they call the null hypothesis or an alternative hypothesis. So you have different layers to this. So it's kind of like you have evidence, and this is, evidence they're presenting, but it's like how many different ways are there understanding it, explaining it, and are there other hypotheses or other explanations that make more sense? So people basically believe in the we'll call it the Trump world, that these individuals are the ones that basically mastermind the entire plot against Trump, basically. So they basically thought, and so people who are believing these theories, all right, that the conspiracy's first step was to fabricate a basis for investigation into Trump, basically sometime during the spring of 2016. So for basically, how do I have evidence to drum up fake information or fake evidence to make it to where we need to investigate this guy? Okay.
Is that when they bugged the Trump Tower?
So that's where they basically said that it was then during the intelligence chiefs worked with their partners in the Clinton campaign to hire Michael Steele. Michael Steele was the infamous Steele Dossier, the British agent
the Golden Shower.
The Golden Shower guy, the Golden Shower Dossier.
Now, isn't that right there? Isn't that foreign interference if you're getting information from a foreign entity about your political opponent?
Well, see, this is where I think, once again, I think I feel like
we're splitting hairs is what I'm saying.
Well, it's kind of like, well, I didn't directly give it to you.
Doesn't matter.
Well, no, that's what I'm saying. I agree.
It might matter legally. I don't know about that, but I can tell you as a quote-unquote neutral voter, and if you're looking at me to say, listen, I'm going to say, listen, I don't care. It would be like saying, you know what? I didn't tell you that secret. I told your wife and said, wink, wink, don't tell Mike. And then she did. And the bottom line is it came from a foreign.
Now, I agree, right? Now, the thing is, so allegedly, though, and so this is where it gets interesting. Now, I think some people are saying that now the article doesn't talk about this specifically, about who paid for it. I know some people have said the Clinton campaign did. There's no evidence to say the Clinton. How it got into the American, basically, lexicon, the discussion was that it was presented to several politicians out of concern. And then John McCain is actually the one then who delivered it to Comey for an investigation, basically to kind of look at it.
This is Comey that is also supposedly part of the deep.
But this is where, but hold on, this is where we're going to read through. But it gets interesting once again with the different evidence. All right, so basically the next step, so the very next step that they brought friends from the international intelligence community, in a conspiracy, basically. So they used a shadowy Italian agent. His name was Joseph Misfud. You may be familiar. He was actually in the news recently when Andrew Barr or Bill Barr went to our Attorney General went to talk with him about allegedly where the information that he had came from. So a lot of people are saying Joseph Mifsud, who has Russian ties, basically he was the ones that he was the origin of the Russian investigation, the Russian like misinformation, trying to pin it on Russia, that the Steele Dossier basically. And so basically they used Joseph Mifsud, an Italian agent, and Australian ambassador Alexander Downer, and then they basically believe that they used those two to entrap low-level staffer George Papadopoulos. He was the guy that got in trouble for purposely trying to solicit information. Basically, those two guys came to him saying, hey, we have information that you can take to your boss, that you can take to see if they would basically take, the bait to like entrap him, basically. Basically, Mifsud offered phony Russian dirt on Hillary Clinton to him. He did this knowing that Papadopoulos would brag about this highly secretive and illegal offer in a meeting with Downer a month later. Downer then relayed the intelligence, wink, wink, back to the Americans who had positioned it there in the first place. So it's kind of like what they were basically doing was like the start of this grand plan was we had this dossier, we had this information. Now we need to entrap people. So we're gonna use these foreign agents in Italy and Australia, and we're going to basically try to find some low-level, overly ambitious staffer who we think we could feed that information to basically entrap them, get them on tape, get them in trouble, basically. So that's kind of what that belief was of how all that kind of went down. The intel agencies then had successfully planted the evidence they needed to begin the greatest witch hunt ever constructed or conducted outside of Salem. Those were his words, right? So that's where you start kind of getting like, he was being facetious, but he was just like, all right, so.
Well, hold on. So just to recap real quick. So we have high-ranking members of our, FBI, CIA.
What's good? This is the conspiracy theory.
Who are being implicated.
Yeah.
We have lower-level actual FBI agents who are factually have said they're going to stop Trump. Mm-hmm. We have some fake dossier, right?
We don't know what's fake. There have been things in there that have been confirmed. Not all of it, but there are some things in there that are.
Have you seen a P tape?
No, but you can read the dossier. Was
that not kind of the golden nugget though of the dossier?
I think there's a lot of things in. That was the most salacious, but there were. Did you read the dossier?
All I kept a little bit.
I read the whole dossier.
All I kept hearing is if Trump doesn't bow down to Russia and do everything,
they're going to release that.
They're going to release a P.
So that's if you read what.
Come on, man.
See, now the thing is like. That is, if you really read the dossier, there's a lot more in there. And there's actually some things in there. I mean, you got to look at intelligence briefing. An intelligence dossier isn't like everything is fact. It's just, this is intel that we have. This is what multiple people have said. It's not saying it's accurate. It's not saying it's truth. All it's saying is, hey, we have multiple people saying these things. This is what they said.
Don't you think if there was a P tape of Trump, that first of all, it would already leaked out.
But this is
nobody can hang on.
But here's the thing: you're focusing on the P tape, and that's maybe what was in the news. That made up a small sliver of the Steele dossier.
Just real quick though, if there was a P tape, I think it would already been leaked out because you can only sit on that for so long. Right?
Yeah, but we are talking about the Russians here, though, man. The Russians are holding on to shit from a long time ago, man.
And number two, if there really was a P tape, all right, and it was released, and I don't care if you had Donald Trump, a perfect facial recognition, what would he say? It's not me. You had Bill Clinton, banging chicks with cigars. Do you think a P tape? Nope, wasn't me.
But here's the thing you gotta look at, though. With this dossier, regardless of what's 100% accurate, what's not, right? You read the dossier, there are some things that are accurate in there, right? Once again, it is an intelligence briefing. It is not saying it's fact. It's just saying this is shit that we found. Multiple people have corroborated it. I mean, you gotta look at the dates that were in there. Corroborate when he was over there.
But people still are gonna be a doubt, no matter where it comes from. Because look who gets filtered through.
But the problem is, those are the problem. Those are the things. Like a dossier like that never sees a light of day to the normal human public. It never does. That stays in intelligence agencies. That's how those briefings kind of work. Okay, if you're familiar with intelligence agencies and how things work, so that's the thing. It's like people are reading it like that's not true. It's like, dude. Intelligent. I mean, hell, you look at the whole basis going to the Iraq War was based on a faulty, dossier. So we're really being, apples to apples here,
exactly.
Right? So once again, and this isn't about. All we're doing is just saying this is what this thing is, right? And this is what they're kind of saying, okay? So, so that was kind of like the start of it, right? So now here's like the interesting, right? So like when they look at, so they have all this information in May, right, before the election. But the thing is, though, their whole thing is what they're saying, at least what the people that believe in the conspiracy theory is that, well, they couldn't really do anything kind of with it because, you know, they had to wait. They had all this evidence, but then they had to wait for the right time to kind of pounce to utilize this information. So they said that opportunity came in July when WikiLeaks began releasing highly damaging information about Hillary Clinton. The candidate, the intelligence community was ostensibly trying to help. So this was the thing I've always had a giant kind of like question mark about, because they kept like making this narrative of the, you know, the server, the emails and everything that were released, right? But the crazy thing is that it only hurt Hillary. I mean, like that information when it came out, it made Hillary look awful. None of it was about Trump, and it was just kind of weird. It's like they kept pointing to it, the conspiracy theory about it came out and it was going to help Trump, but it's like it was going to you know help Hillary and hurt Trump, but it's like all it did was hurt Hillary, and it didn't make Trump look bad at all. So that was like the first thing, and even in this article it kind of points to that of like that part doesn't make any sense. And remember, data, hypothesis, does the data match what my hypothesis is? And that's the first part of the conspiracy theory that really kind of starts falling apart a little bit for me of it makes no sense whatsoever, right? So, and that's one of the pieces, like, and even the author talks about it, like they haven't been able to kind of figure it out, like, you know. So now Trump world does have its own theory. So Sean Hannity, Jay Sekulow, and Giuliani all basically said that they've suggested that the intelligence community, and if you think I'm down to this, is literally, if you go to the article, this is literally said in interviews, they believed that they have suggested that the intelligence community had a mole inside the DNC who knew that the email servers had been breached. But rather than report this breach in an attempt to stop the damaging emails from being published, which would have been a much bigger help to Clinton, they murdered the leaker and then allowed the emails. So Seth Rich was the leaker.
Oh,
they said, so they said they murdered the leaker and then allowed the emails to be published as a part of the sting to nail Trump. But the thing is, though, none of that helps. None of that helps Clinton. That only hurts Clinton.
Well, in hindsight, you're right. Maybe at the time, though, maybe for one reason or another, it was believed that it would have been the opposite.
Yeah, but let's sit there and go, how could any of those things help? How could, I mean, seriously, we're talking about these are people that...
I think because, well, the only thing I can think of maybe, and again, this is just me floating in ideas, is the FBI, if they're truly not wanting Trump to get elected, which it sounds like, is maybe they're trying to play long ball. And what I'm saying is that
we'll go into that.
Yeah,
I mean,
by saying, listen, well, look, we dug up this information on Hillary Clinton, so because they knew that Trump and his campaign and his people would come back and say, well, the FBI is crooked and corrupt, and they can come back and say, well, look, we investigated Hillary Clinton, so we're investigating both. You know what I mean?
But well, I'll go in that here in a second. Okay. So like that part, but that's just once again that's a whole other layer to this going.
I mean, he did,
but
let's be honest though, that is another guy that mysteriously dies.
No. But I'm not. But you're absolutely right. That's the whole thing's never sat well with me. But the thing is, it's like it didn't. They automatically it was about Clinton, but it's like none of that made sense for it. All that hurt Clinton. It didn't make any sense. Like, was this like reverse psychology, right? And so like,
don't know.
So like, well, one of their theories is that the intelligence community used an ally, perhaps the Ukraine, to hack the DNC in a false flag operation against the Clinton campaign so that they would later maybe pin the breach on Trump and Russia. Like, but the thing is, it's like there's no evidence of that. And once again, it's like you sit there and for this hypothesis to really hold water, it would have to be something black and white, because if they're going to this trouble to launch this operation, no one on paper would sit there and go, this is going to work. It's going to hurt Trump and going to help Clinton. Nobody would say that.
Maybe it was something that, like I said earlier, maybe it was something that they thought was going to be something but didn't work out. Backfired.
This is the problem when you want to believe something so bad, you have to twist in the wind to find some connection. But you got to look at, I come from at this of a, well, I'm not here to prove or disprove. I just don't know what the evidence says. Right. And to me, as a researcher, it makes no sense. You have to want to believe it so bad. You have to find a way to make it make sense. But with losing track, it doesn't make any sense at all, right? So next, basically, So regardless of like how it happened, all right, the WikiLeaks dump was the opportunity the intelligence community needed. It was kind of like the linchpin to start this whole plan in motion. So first they went through the appropriate channels at the FBI so as not to blow their cover, and they presented the Papadopoulos intel and the dossier so they could begin a formal investigation into Trump. Now, using that dossier, they got a scam FISA warrant to monitor Trump and their consultant Carter Page, who had previously been recruited as an asset by Russian intelligence.
So Trump, who is running against Hillary Clinton, who is the chosen one, right? Obama's quote-unquote third term, right? So during the Obama administration, a political opponent is placed under surveillance by who, Mike D? Who was it?
The FBI.
The FBI, who vowed to do what?
Now,
some of the agents vowed to do what?
Right? To, what was the wording? To basically secret society to bring him down, right? To prevent it.
But do you see whether it's true or not? Do you see why?
Oh, no. That's something. I get it. I see it. I totally see it.
I'm just trying to relate to our audience.
Yeah.
Because, again, as a Trump supporter,
right?
I'm trying to explain why, and then when you hear things about fake news or people point the finger at Trump and then you conveniently forget about, well, now imagine if right now Trump had, I'm not saying Obama ordered it, but during Trump's administration, the FBI said, we're going to stop, whoever the Democrat nominee is, we're going to stop Biden from getting elected. And then they put surveillance on Biden. Imagine how that would go. It'd go over as well as a turd in a punch bowl, as Jim Cornette would say.
I get it. So, like, once again, if you put that together, but then you also sit there and go, and this next part is kind of really, once again, where the conspiracy theory to me falls apart, right?
I'm not saying Trump is 100% innocent. Yeah. I'm sure there's probably some kind of shadiness going on.
But once again, it's because like people, there's multiple ways of looking at something, right? And this is where the author...
It's politics. It's dirty.
Yeah, I mean, but, given though, I mean, like, those guys did do something wrong. So now the conspiracy theories, they got entrapped into it, all right? But this is where, once again, it's kind of like, it's like depending on what you want to believe, you can believe something different. But this is where, once again, when you look at this from a perspective of hypothesis testing and kind of going, well, if you really were going to do this, why would you do that, right? And that next part is really key to me. So next, using the dossier, so they got that scam FISA warrant. And then as Trump would later say, Obama tapped my wires. It is unclear, though, why Obama and the intelligence community didn't simply target Trump's campaign chair, Paul Manafort, who was also a known Russian asset and might have had more relevant information for the high-stakes wiretapping. But leave that aside for a moment, as he said, right? The FISA warrant was for Carter Page. But Trump world thinks there was more going on than just the surveillance. During a discussion on Sean Hannity, Lindsey Graham left the door open for the possibility that the intelligence cabal also brought in Italian, British, and Australian assets to outsource additional spying on Trump so they could circumvent American law. So
would you not, I mean, is that not possible?
Oh, it absolutely is.
I mean, and again, not to pick on Obama, but I remember when Obama was running for president and they were, he was talking about the Patriot Act and, this is post 9/11, and Obama said something to the effect of, there is every, U.S. citizen's right to not be spied on by their government.
Yeah.
Like he made this big speech about it, and then only to find out years later that when Obama took office, not only did he continue the spying, but he actually, under his watch, he
expanded it.
Oh, my God.
Absolutely. Yeah,
so,
he was awfully good at that.
But with that in mind, is it out of the realm? And again, I know it's just a conspiracy theory. Is it really out of the realm? So you got Obama expanding spying, right? Secretly, right? Lying about it secretly. Mm-hmm. You got members of the FBI who openly said Trump ain't gonna happen. So again, whether it's true or not, again, there's a lot of smoke there. So what I'm saying is, so for like folks like Hannity and for Trump supporters, that's where it's coming from. They're going, well, why stop there? Because you said it's conspiracy.
Yeah.
So they're going, well, at this point in time, now it's almost like everything's off the table. You almost anything. You could say that they contacted aliens to spy on Trump or spy on Hillary, and there's going to be people going, everything else is happening.
Yeah, and so basically at this point in a conspiracy, you're either, if you're against it, you're sitting there going, well, the guy's committed crimes, so of course that there is evidence for a FISA warrant. If you're on the other side, you're going, they are setting these guys up and trapped them, and so of course they were doing all this. This is a big, giant setup, right?
Maybe they're all guilty of something. How about that?
So then it kind of goes into, so it's like, basically they're going, all right, so they have Trump like kind of like right where they want him. They're putting all these little pieces kind of together, right? So then they started going like, where is this whole Ukraine thing going? Because everyone kept saying like, it's not Russia, it's really maybe the Ukraine or something like that. Okay, so basically say the Ukraine, having recently been invaded by Russia, was primed to participate in an effort to frame the Russians for an elaborate crime being committed by the American intelligence. So basically what they're throwing out there is that it's almost like the Russians were almost innocent dupes in all this, that really this is a big giant frame job by the Ukrainians and the American intelligence agency. So basically, and they're saying that conveniently the cabal, is what they're calling it, had a DNC consultant named Alexandra Chalupa, who was willing and able to be the between the American intelligence community and Ukrainians. They said they had knowledge of Paul Manafort's actions in the country through anti-Russian elements of the Ukrainian government. They had a secret funder in George Soros, basically to fund this entire operation. And as an added bonus, they said the Obama administration also had leverage over the Ukrainians thanks to yet another conspiracy. This one headed up by Vice President Joe Biden. So because basically, according to Trump World, Biden had recruited the entire global pro-democracy movement, the European Union, the IMF, the American Diplomatic Corps, and key NGOs, non-government organizations, to plot and to plot to fire a noble Ukrainian prosecutor. Also, that Biden's son could make $50,000 a month working for a Ukrainian oligarch. So it's kind of like, what I think what he's laying out there is like, man, that's like for Biden, the Biden Ukrainian part, man, that's a lot of moving pieces just so your son could have $50,000 in walking around money, basically, right?
Well, I don't know if it's just that. I mean, there's also connections, too.
Yeah. I mean, once again, it's like, it's all about this giant setup. Everything is a setup for the setup, right? So Fox News reporter Jesse Waters basically then claims to have uncovered another aspect of the conspiracy, suggesting that Biden worked with former CIA Cofer Black, the former president of Poland, and John Kerry, a confidant in a wide-ranging scheme to smear the prosecutor at odds with Hunter Biden. Giuliani has himself indicated that he has evidence that Obama was in on it too, as well as the American ambassador to Ukraine and the former Ukrainian president. So bringing the Ukrainians involved in the Biden operation to the trust tree, he put it in quotation marks, was critical because the cabal inside the FBI needed cover. Why? Because the non-traitorous rank-and-file members of the Bureau couldn't be allowed to find out the plot when they investigated the DNC breach. So they're really kind of like setting up all these people. And so when you start hearing, it's just like, Jesus, like, this is a lot of work, and it's like everything has to work like perfectly. It's almost like a plot line to like Ocean's 11 almost, right?
I was just gonna say that, something like
it's
that.
like, and this is like whenever you hear stuff like this, another thing, then another thing. Well, then the thing is you have to understand about this. That should automatically ring a bell of like, all right, like there's a lot of what ifs here. There's a lot of assumptions, right? Yeah. Now, given I get it, but once again, this is what that theory is.
That's what dirty politics.
Yeah, I mean, So Ukraine at this point, the conspirators inside the intelligence community called up a U.S. company called CrowdStrike. We've been hearing about all that on news, right? So CrowdStrike, they are basically a Ukrainian company, that used to kind of do like hiding, like erasing trails of IP addresses and everything. So the company called CrowdStrike, the conspirators colluded with the DNC chairwoman and current Fox News contributor Donna Bazile through her consultant, Alexander Chalupa, to deny the FBI access to the DNC hack servers. Because if they gave the FBI access, their theory was that they would see that it really wasn't Russia, that it really came from the CrowdStrike servers in Ukraine. Okay? So they arranged for CrowdStrike to examine the compromised servers as part of the law enforcement investigation. CrowdStrike then fabricated evidence from servers to implicate Russia, which you remember was an innocent bystander this whole time. So not just innocent, but a dupe, they said, because all the old KGB hands who now run the country somehow missed a massive intelligence conspiracy happening inside the United States in which they were being implicated, even though the big part of it was taking place in their own backyard.
Do you think that if Russia really was duped, let's say, do you think though they would come out and admit that?
It's just interesting.
Yeah.
Once again, it's like it's assuming a lot of this, right? So and they go, then anyway, CrowdStrike took the servers, fabricated the evidence against the innocent Russians, and then proceeded to hide the real servers in Ukraine. People in Trump world always say server, singular. Because it's kind of like, oh, there's only one, but it's like, all right, come on, all right? So they said Ukraine didn't just provide shelter for the stolen servers. Its intelligence apparatus also gave the cabal information about Manafort in a form of the Black Ledger with records of his illegal payment. So basically, from a former Ukrainian president, Yanukovych, or whatever the hell his name was. So, and Giuliani said that the conspiracy went all the way down, and he says he's the man who put all the pieces together. And he said Ukrainian collusion, which was large, significant, and proven with Hillary Clinton, with the DNC, a woman named Chalupa, with the ambassador, with the FBI agent who's now been hired by George Soros, who was funding a lot of it. So they're putting together a lot of these kind of pieces, right? So it's like everything is now put together. This were the Kennedy assassination. It's Oswald and all the shooters are in place. You have the driver of the limo slowing down to 12 miles an hour around the bend around Daley Plaza. It's like all of this, man, right? So then now it's like checkmate. This is where shit's about to get real, right? So as the 2016 campaign hit the home stretch that fall, the Obama administration intelligence units had set themselves up perfectly for a dramatic finish. So let's walk through. I'm going to review everything. So remember, basically they seeded the phony dossier. They entrapped George Papadopoulos. They tapped Carter Page's wires. They engaged intelligence officials in 3 different countries in a spying operation. They allowed a continuous drip of false flag emails damaging Hillary Clinton. Now remember, she's their candidate of choice, so they did this to throw people off the scent. They cryptically implied to the media that Russia was behind the WikiLeaks hack. They covered up this false flag operation with the Ukrainian, actually American, cybersecurity firm CrowdStrike. They received the Ukrainian Paul Manafort file and gotten Hunter Biden some walking around money. Okay? You with me still?
I'm trying to.
All right. So now, as everything was clicking into place, the FBI made a dramatic decision. They didn't want to tip their hand to make an announcement about all the evidence they had on Trump. Because remember, this was before the election, right?
Oh, yeah.
So they could have dropped all this information, right? Which technically would make the most sense, right? And tell me if I'm wrong, Bill. If you had all this information on Trump, dropping this in October, right before the election, would that be pretty damaging to Trump?
It would definitely be damaging.
It'd definitely be damaging, right?
Oh, yeah.
Right? But they didn't do that, though, did they? Okay. So what did they do? So
they dropped the information.
So they didn't want to use their considerable resources to uncover Trump's tax returns and then leak them to the press. What they decided to do was brief Harry Reid on the information that he hoped that they had gathered, hoping that he would reprise his dirty trickster role from the 2012 campaign. Then our cabal from the Intelligence Committee, which included the director of the FBI, decided to write a letter to Congress about how they were reopening the investigation against Clinton. And then, finally, they decided to exonerate Trump of the crimes they were fabricating with an 11th hour leak to the New York Times.
Let me ask you something.
So, but think about that for a second.
Yeah.
Does any of that make sense?
No. Well, yes and no. Yes and no. And does anyone know approximately at this time when this information came out, what Hillary's national polling average, what her lead was? Because some polls had her up as many as 10 points.
If I recall, she lost a good 3 or 4 points when all that came out. I mean,
the intelligence community, right? Let's say the deep state. Let's assume they are running this. They know that Hillary, up 10 points, let's say, or whatever it was. Looking at a landslide victory.
I don't think it was 10. I think it was pretty close at that point. It was like 4 or 5 points.
Going into like a few days before, Hillary, I think, was up by like 10. Some polls was up by as many as 10. Landslide was the word that was being thrown around. Not win, landslide. All right? Even Fox polls had Trump losing.
I get what you're saying, but like, use your common sense, though. Does it make any and so if you're an intelligence apparatus,
you know what they're doing?
What theory?
You know what they're doing?
What?
They're point shaving.
They're what?
They're point shaving. They're shaving.
Why would they do that?
Because they thought that Hillary already had it.
Again, but why would you? But why though? Why? If you really remember, if you don't want Trump to win,
because they
wouldn't you? Why would you not damage Trump?
Because they want to appear as though. Why was it leaked, or just a few days before the election, a week before the election? Why do you think it was announced that they're reinvestigating Hillary? Do you honestly think that if they were tied neck and neck, or God forbid Trump was pulling ahead of Hillary, do you really think that this guy would have came out and said, "Well, we're going to investigate Hillary"? Absolutely, it would have conveniently.
But this is where you're losing me, though. In what?
It hurt, but they knew it only hurt Hillary by a few points.
But if your goal is to get where Trump is not going to get elected, why would you exonerate Trump?
Because they did not know that Trump was going to pull so many.
But their whole point is to get to where Trump is not going to win. So why would you do something that would only hurt her? Wouldn't you do the opposite?
If you let
me finish,
I would love to tell you. again, they're point shaving. They did not think, hold on, they did not think that no matter what they did that Trump was going to win because Trump was ahead by so much.
But why would you make it easier for Trump to win?
I'm trying to
But why? Why would you make it easier for him to win?
Because they thought it was in the bag. They thought it was done. They had already put in their second stringers. They're up by 3 touchdowns. We can kneel the ball.
But you didn't need to do that, though. You don't need to point shave
because they wanted to give the impression
but there's no point to doing that.
Hold on. Because they knew that Trump was going to throw a fit. They knew Trump was going to protest, right, with all this information coming out. And they wanted to be able to say, well, obviously we're not in on this conspiracy. Why would we release damning Why would we release damning information about Hillary prior to the election? We would have done that afterwards.
But if you're, dude...
And it was an all-time backfire.
But it doesn't... That makes no sense because if you would... No one would... Because... Why would you even try doing that if you know they're winning? It's like you don't need to cheat to win, but then I'm going to cover up and acted like I was going to cheat, even though I didn't need to cheat to win. I'm going to make it look like I wasn't cheating. It makes no sense. It is all risk and no reward.
Okay.
Because you're going to look at, they're spending millions and millions of dollars, intelligence agencies whose jobs is to do shit. It makes no sense. The only way it makes sense if you absolutely want to believe this theory right here.
Okay. In 2016, there was 9 toss-up states, right? Toss-up states. Out of all those toss-up states, do you know how many of those states Trump won?
No.
All of them.
But once again...
Hold on. Do you know how many presidents have won every single toss-up state? None.
I think, didn't Obama win it?
Well, not toss-up states. We're talking about toss-up states.
But
we're talking Florida,
but
Ohio.
But what is that?
But my point is, though, Mike, the people in the intelligence community that supposedly, according to this, conspiracy, were on Clinton's side and released this information that was damning to Clinton. I guarantee you, not one of them knew that Trump was going to win every toss-up state. But they went off bad intelligence.
But
you said it yourself, weapons of mass destruction.
But
they get it wrong all the time.
But the thing is, you don't need to. If they knew she was gonna win, why would you even do an operation that you had to cover up if you didn't even need to? And then you had to point shave. It's it's like thinking you're going to cheat on your wife, not cheating on your wife at all, but then doing things to cover up that you cheat on your wife, and in the process, making it look like you cheated on your wife. These are intelligence agencies. It doesn't work like that. The only way this conspiracy in that, I'm not saying that there wasn't another.
You said it yourself. They got the WMDs in Iraq wrong. Clearly, they could have got this wrong. I mean, dude, I don't know. It
doesn't make any sense. I'm not saying there could be another. All I gotta say is they're not even saying this. And you gotta look at in the Trump conspiracy. No one is saying that. Oh well.
Let me hypothesize. Okay, let's say Trump starts running. He wins the candidacy. They're worried about it. So they get all this information because they're like, man, Trump could be a real problem here to the way that we want things to go. They wrote it down. They text each other. We're going to stop him. It's not going to happen. Blah, 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 right? Okay. So as it's going on and on, they're gathering this information because they don't know what's going to happen next week in the polls or next month or in a few months from now. So we need this ammunition just in case. So they start, this stuff comes out. And all of a sudden now I think they're in too deep and they're going, oh, shit. They're going to, we've done I don't know. I'm hypothesizing here. They're going, wow, we've really done a lot of shit to get on Trump. Hold on. So they're going, we need to now appear like, hey, Hillary's got this in the bag. She's up by 5, 8, 10 points in all the polls, right? She's got in the bag. So here's what we need to do. In order to give the illusion that we're being fair, we need now to release or put something that kind of dings Hillary. But it won't do enough because she's got in the bag.
But the only way that hypothesis makes sense if they were already doing things but the thing is, the only way that makes sense, Bill, if they were already doing things to push it in Hillary's favor, what the evidence, their own conspiracy theory shows, it says they were not they hadn't even used the information yet. They hadn't done anything to make it unfair. The equivalent of what they did would be like in the Super Bowl. You have the Patriots. You have evidence of the Patriots cheating.
Maybe they thought they didn't need it.
And you had evidence that the Patriots basically had, all this shit, right? And so what do? you don't use it before the game. You use it after the game's already over to try to make it look like the Patriots didn't beat you fair and square. It doesn't make
using reverse. I know,
but it doesn't make, even if those reverse psychology, it doesn't make any sense. The only way this hypothesis makes sense.
Do you think any of this intelligence members of the intelligence community, any of the members, any of them, knew or had an idea, had a realistic thought that Donald Trump was winning? Not a pipe dream. Hold on, not a long shot. Yeah, I'm saying, was anyone walking around in the intelligence community going, Trump's got this. It's done. Trump, he's going to win. Hands down.
I think they were trying to make it to where he was not going to win. They did not want him to win.
I'm not saying that. I'm saying I don't think they thought they needed to use the stuff. They were like, we don't. It's like going into a football game and you're supposed to have this opponent, and all of a sudden it's coming time, and all of a sudden for whatever reason it's like, maybe their starting quarterback's injured and the running back's suspended, and you're like,
so the thing is,
I don't know.
That's a new conspiracy theory, because what they're presenting is that they were doing this the whole time in their plan. Mm-hmm. And once again, and so their plan then, it's like, so you release it all after he gets elected. If your whole plan was to prevent him from being elected, why release and dump all this information after he's already won? So then what?
They want to damage his presidency.
But if you want to,
make it illegitimate.
If you had all this information, you would drop it.
They didn't think he was going to win.
You would, the military has contingencies for contingencies. If you think you're not going to not use this information,
is this the same military that said we had weapons of mass destruction?
But why would you, if you haven't used the information?
I'm just telling you.
But that's the thing. You want to believe that this is true. I don't give a shit if it's true or not. This hypothesis makes no sense. If you haven't even used, because you got to look at, remember, this conspiracy theory is this was the plan the whole time, to do it afterwards. But all they did, they sat on the information, and the only things that they did actually hurt Hillary, and then didn't use any of the information until after. You have me on, Mike. You know what? They used this shit afterwards, but their conspiracy that this was the plan the whole time does not make any sense. If you're having millions and millions of dollars, you have multiple intelligence agencies. They've done better shit than this, man.
Let me tell you, and let me give you a quick brief rundown here. Here's why I don't think they dropped that, because they didn't think they needed to use it, and they dropped it afterwards because they went, oh shit, now we need to make his presidency illegitimate. I don't know, okay? But here's talking about intelligence, right? You're the intelligence community, you're in the FBI, whoever, you're part of the conspiracy. Here are the polls. Here are the polls right before the election in these swing states, okay? Here's how bad they got it wrong. This is why nobody thought. I was a Trump supporter. Hold on. They had Wisconsin, toss-up state, right? The polls, the national polls, on average, had Clinton up by 6.5 points in Wisconsin, a key toss-up state. Trump ended up winning by 1 point. Off by 7 points. It's a 7-point swing in one state. Hold on, it gets better. Iowa, right? Off again by 7 points. They had Trump up by 3 points. He won by 10 points. This goes on and on. Ohio, they were off by 4 points. They had Trump up by 3.5. He won by 8. Michigan off by 4 points. They had Clinton up by 3.4 points. Trump won by a single point. Minnesota goes on, off by 3. They had Clinton up by 5. She only won by 2. It goes on and on.
You can come up with a million different things, right?
But they didn't think he was going to win. They didn't think they needed to use it.
But this is where there's a giant hole in your hypothesis, though.
Yeah.
They murdered somebody.
Well,
they murdered Seth Rich, according to their conspiracy theory. They spent millions of dollars. They cultivated all this intelligence. They set up fake servers. They framed Russia to then to murder people, to spend millions of dollars, to set up a country to not use it, and then to only put out information that only was going to hurt your other candidate. Bill, it makes no sense. Use your brain. There could be another conspiracy theory out there. It could be totally, but according to that conspiracy theory, what they said, it makes no sense. They wouldn't murder somebody if
maybe they didn't know at the time, man. I'm just telling.
But dude, I'm telling you, man, their conspiracy theory that they're peddling, it makes no sense.
The morning of the election, the betting odds of Clinton winning right, was 81%.
But dude, you keep going back to like, because they didn't think he was going to win. They did all that work because they afraid that those aren't the actions of somebody who did not think that he was going to win.
Well, maybe
if this is true,
maybe at the time they didn't think he was going to win.
What are you talking about? For a year, they're cultivating evidence. They're setting up fake servers. They're murdering somebody.
Okay, you told me earlier that they have contingency plans for the contingency plans.
Exactly. So why would they kill somebody?
Mike,
why would they set up an international company to not use it?
I'm trying to tell you. If you would calm down, I can tell you. Maybe at the time they didn't know that they weren't going to need it. Okay, do you know what you're going to do tomorrow? And
are those the actions of somebody who wasn't that worried about it?
Again,
if they're going to go that far, are those the actions of people who aren't that worried?
You're trying to apply logic to an illogical situation.
But no, I mean it makes sense.
You are describing our intelligence community that once again,
if I went out,
had weapons of mass destruction.
Dude, if I went out and bought,
did they get that wrong? Did they?
But they still went to war. They still took action. They acted on it.
That's because there's money involved. I mean, come on.
They acted on it. Well, you have to look at it, man.
But what I'm saying is, why show your hand if you think you're not going to need it? Why?
Because the whole point was to prevent the guy from getting elected. You'd think when they started realizing in the polls,
Mike, if you're the Patriots and you're up winning a game, why would you use a deflated football if in a game you're winning by a blow?
Dude, well, the thing is, dude, they don't know what. If I were to sit there and spend $100,000 on guns and build a perimeter fence, and you go, Mike, are you worried about people invading? No, no. You're gonna be like, that's bullshit. Your actions don't speak of someone who isn't worried about it. You're like, it's one thing if like they just kind of casually had this information. According to this conspiracy theory, they were carefully setting this up to do what they did. It was all according to plan. Their secret plan was to somehow do all this. It only works if you don't want to. It only works if you don't want to believe, or if you want to believe this hypothesis. You have to only want to believe it.
I understand. But it
makes no sense.
Again, you're getting very emotional here.
Because it doesn't make sense.
A lot of things our government doesn't, and our policy doesn't make sense.
Because you want to believe that.
I don't want to believe.
It doesn't make any sense. You're trying to find a way of explaining it.
I'm hypothesizing here because I thought that's what we were supposed to be doing here. Okay, because you asked me why would they not use it. I'm guessing again because why would you show your hand? Why would you use it if you thought
you use it? You wouldn't.
Again, I ask again, if Hillary was losing in the polls, or Hillary and Donald Trump were tied, okay, or Hillary was losing, do you think, magically, I think this stuff would have came out before then, magically. That's all I'm saying. I think that they thought that Hillary was so far ahead or ahead enough that they didn't need it, and B, you know what, we can actually hurt it. Because
those weren't the actions of people who thought they didn't need it.
Yeah, again,
you don't murder somebody. You don't murder someone according to conspiracy if you don't think you don't need to use it. You framed a foreign government. You don't.
It's politics.
You wouldn't do that.
Politics. They do shit like this all the time. Come on, man.
Even with politics, it doesn't make any sense. Why would you go to that trouble? Are those the actions of people, according to this conspiracy theory, that we're not worried about it?
Well, maybe they thought the guy had something. I don't know. You have to ask them.
But that's my whole point, is that you're not going to know 100% what went down. But you got to sit there and go, what is logical? It is not logical. You have to really rack your brain to find some way of going, why maybe? And the only thing you can come up, well, they didn't think they needed it. But their actions clearly show that they thought they did. You wouldn't murder somebody.
Well, but at the time when they were doing this, they didn't know. I'm saying at the time when they released,
I would argue that her numbers were better when they started doing this in 2016.
Maybe, but that's what I'm saying. But they don't know.
That's what you got to look at. If your logic was, well, towards the end when her numbers were the worst that they were,
let me ask you
well,
this.
Then why would they do it when her numbers were the best and they put all those resources into it?
Okay, you're in a war and you're descending upon your enemy's capital. Okay, and everything you've heard, you've been told, you've been seen, right? Is their forces are depleted. They're out of food. They're out of ammo. They want to surrender. They just, blah, 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 blah. Is that, at that time, is that when you use your nuclear weapon? No. Why?
That's when they dropped the bomb on the Japanese.
No, we dropped the bomb on the Japanese so we wouldn't have to lose 100,000 lives invading Japan.
The Japanese were already in a lot of trouble at that point.
They were not ready to
they weren't ready, but they were already struggling.
My point is, though, right, look at the end of Game of Thrones. Remember when she turned the dragon loose, right? Any other leader would not have done that because they're like, look at these people. They don't even want to fight. Right? That's not the time to drop the nuclear weapon. So when you think you've won a war, that's when. But
they did the equivalent though of dropping a bomb on their own people first. Like, we're really worried it's going to look bad that maybe we're cheating here, so we're actually going to make it worse.
That's kind of.
But
would you be surprised though to know that that's what? That
but no, because you'd have to already be accused of cheating, and it doesn't. Once again,
buddy, I don't know. It's politics.
I'm gonna say is all I can say is if when her numbers were clearly way through the roof
and
before any of that,
and they all
why? So why would they go through all this trouble murdering someone, spending millions of dollars? But you gotta look at if your logic though is at the time, Mike, they didn't think like if. Your logic was they didn't think they had to use it. So why, when her numbers were the biggest they ever were, that's when they hatched this entire plan, murdered someone, and killed them. So when her numbers then are the smallest they've ever been, when she's the most vulnerable, even though they thought it was still going to be a landslide, then they do something that actually hurts her, and then don't even release the information until after the guy gets elected.
Maybe because they realized that despite her early big lead, that in the other surveys they were taking, that she was voted as like the least likable candidate, and they went, man, we better have a plan just in case, because let's be honest, there are billions and even trillions of dollars at stake on who's the president of the United States. True or false? Globally, trillions. And you don't leave something like that to chance. I think, again, hypothesizing, maybe this was just a huge fuck up by our intelligence community who was fucked up before. And I'm not saying this was. I'm just, again, conspiracy theory, right? They thought Hillary was up. We don't need to use this information. Otherwise, why, like you said, why release it? Not release it before? I don't know. That's the only thing I can think of.
It doesn't make any sense of that when her number, when it looks like she has, when it looks like she has absolutely no chance in hell of losing.
Yeah.
That's when you come up with a plan. But then you decide when her numbers and she's the most vulnerable.
Well, maybe it was an emergency plan. It was a just in case. Hey, let's have a plan just in case. Because, again, there's trillions of dollars at stake. Like you said, you don't want to leave it to chance. But I think someone, again, hypothetically.
But why would you come up with a plan?
I don't know.
When it looks the easiest, when it looks like she has no chance of losing. But then you decide not to use it when it looks like, she has the closest chance of losing. And then make it harder on her.
Did we think the Bay of Pigs invasion was going to fail? Of course not.
Well, no, they did because the Kennedy fucked the CIA.
That's what I'm saying, though. But that's my point, though. It's not quite like the Bay of Pigs, but like, hindsight's 20/20. You think that something's going to happen. I mean, did we really think that we were going to be dragged in Vietnam for over a decade?
Listen, I can sit there and buy the fact that
I know
that they had it informed, they didn't like him, and they were going to try to do something. All I'm saying is this conspiracy theory does not hold water, and they're peddling around like it's fact and they're connected on these things. It once again, it doesn't make any sense to come up with this plan, murder people when she has the biggest lead, but then decide not to use it when she's most vulnerable, and then actually do something that only hurts her. Well, no one would approve that plan, and no one in their right mind would.
Maybe someone decide, hey man, we need to call this off. Maybe too many people know. I don't know.
But then you come out with it, and afterwards, when it makes it look like it's really bad and sour grapes, that's the worst time to come out with it.
Well, what else can they do?
I mean, literally, it's like that's what I'm saying. Like this conspiracy doesn't make any sense, right? If there's another one out there that explains a lot of this shit, hey, I am all ears. But I think the truth of the matter is that, yeah, a lot of it's crooked. Yeah, there's people inside the FBI that didn't want him to be kind of president. But the thing is, though, I also think that Manafort and a lot of these guys, you can't deny the fact that those guys are still doing illegal business dealings with Ukraine and Russia. None of that is fake. Those guys were literally doing that. Trying to go after Carter Page and Papadopoulos they were framed. It's like, well, shit. What would you say if like we caught our wives trying to cheat on us? And the only reason they cheated is because we set them up with a private investigator and they went to go fuck them. And then they use the excuse of, well, you tried setting me up. It's like you still wanted to fuck them, though. What they did, they still took the information. That was illegal. It doesn't matter if they might have been set up. They were still dumb enough to be set up for that. That was illegal. Manafort, he was doing illegal business dealings. Michael Flynn was doing illegal business dealings with these companies or with these countries. No one's even denying that. They even admitted to it. Yeah. Those things are true. That's a reason why that FISA warrant. Now, were they probably extremely eager to have that FISA warrant? Fucking A, they probably were. Now, is what you're saying holding water of if they probably thought that she was going to, maybe would they have fought it a little bit more, like from a legitimate perspective? Yeah. And now, after he got elected and they saw some of the shit that he was saying, because let's be honest, and this is not anything anyone is saying, Trump trashed the CIA. You don't trash the CIA. The last guy that fucked with the CIA got capped, right? this guy was trashing the CIA from the time that he got in there, right? I remember it was like the day before that he spoke in front of the CIA. He was basically calling him out for getting wrong on the Russian interference. And then this is when all the shit started coming out. To me, this is retribution. He went after them. He called them out, called them liars, basically said that they're basically in the bag and got information wrong and had nothing to do with Russia. For Trump, I think it was less about Russia really and messing with our election. For him, it was his ego is so huge and so fragile that if he would to admit and acknowledge that maybe Russia had some hand in doing it, it's almost like he didn't win and he couldn't handle that. Sure. And he couldn't handle it, so he had to deny it. The FBI and the CIA, because he trashed them, I think they then did go after them. It was like, well, fuck you then. If you're going to do this, I'm going to come after you. J. Edgar Hoover did that. Every FBI director's had a bag of dirt. The CIA directors, you go back to George Tenet, you go back to all these guys. Carter Goss, they all have dirt on everybody. That's their job. And if you fuck with them, they are going to use that shit against you. They ain't going to cap you like they probably did Kennedy, but they are going to come after you. That, to me, is Occam's razor.
So, no, it's a deep state.
It's not a deep state. It's just like, it's not deep state if it's out in the open. I mean, deep state is like, it's all secret. No, it's like out in the open. Everybody knows it. There ain't nothing deep about it. It's there.
The CIA is operating inside the United States. They have no legal authority.
I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying it's right. But to me, that to me is a more realistic way of looking at it. To where it's kind of like Trump and his cronies did some illegal shit. I think they fucked with him as well. It's like everyone is guilty. It ain't some like global thing that they ocean to 11 them and set them up just at the right time and it didn't even work. It's like, no, that to me is Occam's razor. That to me is probably what happened.
They didn't set up a cartwheel?
No, that's just what happened.
They had Eleanor Roosevelt, 2 Jethros.
Yeah, that to me is what
Jim
I think
Brown.
happened. This is dumb, man.
And one hell of an Ella Fitzgerald.
One hell of an Ella Fitzgerald. It's like, come on, that's what this reads like. And like to me, what I just laid, that's what I think the truth is that. It's a combination of all those. It ain't what they fucking put out there. And if people are gonna believe that shit, it's like we're ignoring the fact of what probably really went down. And it doesn't change the fact that he still had some cronies working for him.
Bottom line is politics is dirty. I mean, they all get their hands dirty. They all have cronies. They all have whatever you want to call it. It's like college football. Everyone does it. No one talks about it. And the ones that get caught, you're like, shame, shame, shame. And you're like, dude, are you kidding me? Like, why do you think your program's so awesome every year? Like, you think that's a coincidence? That's how I look at it with politics. There's too much money, trillions of dollars involved.
It's all power games, man. And everyone's acting like, oh, it's my guy that's better. Nah, you guys are all fucking dirty. Yeah. I just get angry. Like, if this were Obama, like, I would be every bit as outraged and frustrated because it's bullshit. Like, because while we're sitting there and jerking ourselves off with bullshit, we're not even connected to reality. If we start letting go of reality, we start just putting facts aside and just believe what we want to believe, well, then we're never, ever going to get the truth. And that's how people gain and hold on to power, is because we can't think for ourselves. We can't sit there and go, that makes no sense whatsoever. We want to believe it. And we have people now in power on both sides knowingly and willfully massaging that part of our psyche for their own gain. And it, to me, is the most dangerous thing. And so we have to challenge these things. Now, albeit, maybe I got a little, I don't know, emotional about it, but it's an emotional thing because this is
you're gonna fight me.
I'm fight you. I mean, for a living, literally, my living is the brain and understanding how we construct our views of reality and the errors that we fall into. And so when I see shit like this being used against us, and then people are sitting there like walking around and then just spouting bullshit without using their brain, where it's like, if you just sit there and like just use your brain on this one, it doesn't make any sense. And it's like there's other things that make more sense and are more likely, and it doesn't involve some global conspiracy. And there's other explanations out there that are the truth. And Trump and his boys did some shit wrong, just like the FBI and all of them did some shit wrong. And you have to look at both. And Trump is walking around like his shit don't stink, and he's this like dupe, and he got taken advantage of. It's like, dude, the shit that you did, you brought these people into your campaign. You went after the intelligence community. Guess what? You don't do that shit, dude. Once again, it ain't the 60s, so...
We need to continue this discussion. So I feel like there's still more.
Hey, well, dude, this is just one conspiracy theory. This is just the one that it's all out there, man.
There's more to We got to go deeper in the state.
Hey, I am all into that. You know, we're actually going to have the professor on next week. We've been, my dad and I have been kind of talking off the air, because we've been finding it very peculiar how just today another Navy officer came out and started talking about a UFO story, and it's like more and more of these are coming out. And what I kind of told my dad, and I've used this analogy before, that our power structure, our people, they're treating our country like it's a rental car, like they're beating the shit out of it and turning it in. But it's like, even if like you guys were just using the system to your advantage, you're destroying the system where it would even affect you eventually, right? If you look at the French Revolution, when the wealthy were basically overtly making every rule for themselves, the people rose up, right? And it's like, what is it? It's like that. I go, it's like it's like they know something we don't know. And it's like, are we just going to wake up one day and it's going to be like, oh, that's what they were doing. They were just trying to get us to, you know, chase our tail and spend money so they can use that to go get off the planet. And they're like, "Side, deuces, bye." So they're going to be like, it's like, do they know something we don't know? And I go, it's like, that's
like
what
a
I'm
moon base.
Yeah, I don't know. It's like, is there some cataclysmic event they know about and they're just trying to get off the planet? Like in 2012, that movie, they were basically keeping public appearances and funneling all the money to creating the projects that were going to save humanity, or at least some part of humanity.
Was that a true story?
No, it was just in a movie. I mean, it was a good movie, but so we're going to be talking about that next week, and it's it's October, it's Halloween, so we can start diving into some next level, deeper state stuff. So we'll have some fun with it. So I know tonight's show was long. Maybe we'll try to break it up, but this was a big topic, and we get a little. We get a little emotional.
Get a little worked up.
We do, but the thing is, we're still friends.
Calm and collected. You, man.
I mean, I get fired up sometimes, man. But we're cool now. I mean, we're relaxed, and
I hope so.
Yeah. I'm a passionate guy.
I just
man.
like to, play devil's advocate with you.
Well, I mean, there's some things you can play devil's advocate. Some other things you can't, man.
I just hypothesize. I say, what if?
You can hypothesize these nuts. Sorry,
you're a classy man.
I'm a classy man. On that note, everybody, it's my show, and I am the producer. I can hit that music anytime I want.
This is what 34 years of friendship does.
Yeah. You can overstep the boundaries. Habitual line steppers. I love you, my man.
Love you too.
But this is the conversation we should be able to have. Passionate, but we wrap it up. We're going to drink some beers, and we're going to talk some sports here next on the Armchair. All right?
I like it.
So on that note, everyone, next time you're peddling conspiracy theories, and it clearly goes to one side, like Republican or Democrat, and you listen to that shit and you're like, wait a minute, that shit don't add up. You go, fuck that noise. My ass is great. All right, everyone, on behalf of myself, 614 Network, all day. Armchair QB, catch them on the Armchair QB show. Catch them on Facebook, Twitter, wherever else you can get social media. I'm Michael Devine, everyone. You guys be good to each other, and for God's sake, fucking think. All right, love you.